Contrary to popular belief, looks aren't everything.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if it's your first time. If it is your first time, then obviously this is the middle of a Twilight Zone exploration. So please have a look at the other Twilight Zone videos, but please have a look around the channel in general. Maybe you'll like a few of the videos in there. This is part 17 of the exploration of all episodes, all 156 episodes of the original Twilight Zone series. So the series ran between 1959 and 1964, and it's iconic. It's an incredible show, and I thought it'd be really good to look at all 156 videos because, you know, sometimes you only watch your favourite ones or famous ones or the ones that kind of ring a bell, and I thought I'm going to watch every single one of them and see what happens. And actually, by the end of this video, which I'm going to be talking about 7 episodes in this video, by the end of this video, I would have seen and talked about 102 episodes. So we're 2/3 of the way through the journey, 102 episodes. And in those 102 episodes, there's only 6 I didn't like. So I think that's a pretty good tally. And there are some that are just okay, you know, but only 6 that I could definitely say I didn't like rather than just that they were okay. So this episode, or this video closes season 3. So right at the end of this video, this is the reason why I'm doing 7 episodes. By the time I've done these 7 episodes, we will reach the end of season 3. So you could argue that a lot of the best has happened because season 4 and season 5 hasn't got the best episodes in them, but there's a few of my favorite episodes still to come, a few. So yeah, there's still lots to look forward to. But I think it's just going to be interesting just to look at the ones that aren't as famous. They're not as ingrained in my memory and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, this is the end of season 3. The last 7 episodes. So we start off with an episode called The Trade-Ins. Okay, so The Trade-Ins starts with this opening narration. Mr. and Mrs. John Holt, aging people who slowly and with trembling fingers turn the last pages of a book of life and hope against logic and the preordained that some magic printing press will add to this book another limited edition. But these 2 senior citizens happen to live in a time of the future where nothing is impossible, even the trading of old bodies for new. Mr. and Mrs. John Holt, in their twilight years, who are about to find that there happens to be a zone with the same name. Okay, so The Trade-Ins is written by Rod Serling, and it's a really lovely, sweet, sentimental episode that works really, really well. It's about this old couple, and they're absolutely, completely, totally in love at their old age. And the husband, in particular, is in a lot of pain. And when there's an option to see this company who are talking or who are advertising the opportunity to have new bodies, they go down to have a look, and it's all really, really attractive, the idea of trading in your old body for a new one, and they want to do it together, so both of them get the operation done together, so their personality and intelligence and memory and everything gets put into a new body, and they can choose the body as well. And they do it as a couple, they stay as a couple, and then they live for another 100 years. And it's all very exciting. And it's the Twilight Zone, so it doesn't quite go according to plan. And it's just beautifully done. You don't know where it's going to go. You think it might be one of those situations where one screws over the other one and that kind of thing. But it's not sweeter than that. It's a nicer episode than that. It's a gentle episode, but it's really, really effective, I think. And the last thing that Rod Serling says in the episode, it's either that or the advert for it in the previous episode. He says, "This is for all the sentimentalists of the Twilight Zone," which is quite cool because it is very gentle, sweet, and sentimental. So that's The Trade-Ins. The second episode was also a Rod Serling episode called The Gift. And The Gift starts with this opening narration. The place is Mexico, just across the Texas border, a mountain village held back in time by its remoteness and suddenly intruded upon by the 20th century. And this is Pedro, 9 years old, a lonely, rootless little boy, who will soon make the acquaintance of a traveller from a distant place. We are at present 40 miles from the Rio Grande, but any place and all places can be the Twilight Zone. Okay, so The Gift is an unusual episode. It's set in possibly Mexico, I think, and it's got a really interesting score. So all of the music is provided by a classical guitarist called Lorindo Almeida, and it's beautifully done. And there's a guitarist in the scenes, kind of miming the guitar, I think. I'm not sure, but the whole episode has got this guitar running through it as the score, and it's really nice. It really creates a really lovely atmosphere. It's a very mournful, mawkish atmosphere, to be fair, and it's kind of odd, really, that this one it's some of it works, some of it doesn't work. I don't think it's fully successful, but it's a quite a sentimental edition of the Twilight Zone. It's about a little boy who's interacting with this character who's just suddenly appeared and freaked everybody out, and he's an alien, but he looks humanoid, just looks like a desperate man who needs to rest because something had happened to him. And the villagers are very suspicious, and it's a kind of another one where Rod Serling has attacked suspicion and attacked fear, attacked intolerance, that kind of thing, but done it through this story of this little boy's relationship with this alien that's just visited. And yeah, I mean, it's very atmospheric, but I don't think it quite pays off. But it's fine. It's quite a nice episode. It's not in my small little list of bad episodes. It's just okay. The Gift. Okay, the third episode in this little batch is a really interesting one that I've always remembered. It's an absolute classic. It's called The Dummy. The Dummy starts with this opening narration. You're watching a ventriloquist named Jerry Etherson, a voice thrower par excellence. His alter ego, sitting atop his lap, is a brash stick of kindling with the name Willie. In a moment, Mr. Etherson and his knotty pine partner will be booked in one of the out-of-the-way bistros, that small, dark, intimate place known as the Twilight Zone. The Dummy is written by Rod Serling again. It also features Cliff Robertson again. So there are many, many actors who appeared in 2 episodes. Many actors. And there's a few in this little batch. And Cliff Robertson had previously appeared in 100 Years Over the Rim. And now he's in this one. This is the more famous one out of the 2. It's really famous. It's a classic example of a ventriloquist dummy dominating the puppeteer. And in this story, the puppeteer is literally battling dominance in their act, and the manager of the residency thinks he's making up, thinks he's thinks he's either a lunatic or he's just making it up and trying to wind everybody up and being really manipulative, and he's not impressed with that. But the characterization of the dummy and the puppeteer is absolutely brilliant. Jerry is the name of the ventriloquist, and he is played brilliantly by Cliff Robertson. And basically, after he gets this ultimatum from his manager, he decides to try a different puppet. And this puppet is fine, but it doesn't go well. Basically, the dominant puppet makes sure that doesn't sustain itself for very long, and he's got to return to the original puppet. And it's just it's got a fantastic ending, very dramatic ending, very creepy, macabre ending, and it's just really, really cool. So yeah, The Dummy is definitely one of my favourites of the whole series. Okay, so the next one is called Young Man's Fancy. And the episode Young Man's Fancy starts with this opening narration. You're looking at the house of the late Mrs. Henrietta Walker. This is Mrs. Walker herself as she appeared 25 years ago. And this, except for isolated objects, is the living room of Mrs. Walker's house, as it appeared in that same year. The other rooms upstairs and down are much the same. The time, however, is not 25 years ago, but now. The house of the late Henrietta Walker is, you see, a house which belongs almost entirely to the past. A house which, like Mrs. Walker's clock here, has ceased to recognise the passage of time. Only one element is missing now, one remaining item in the estate of the late Mrs. Walker, her son Alex. 34 years of age, and up till 20 minutes ago, the so-called perennial bachelor. With him is his bride, the former Miss Virginia Lane. They're returning from the City Hall in order to get Mr. Walker's clothes packed, make final arrangements for the sale of the house, lock it up, and depart on their honeymoon. Not a complicated set of tasks, it would appear, and yet the newlywed Mrs. Walker is about to discover that the old adage, "you can't go home again," has little meaning in the Twilight Zone. This one is written by Richard Matheson, and it's another one with a very gentle, sweet nature to it. There's a little bit of a thread here with this little batch. It seems like there's lots of sentimental episodes here in this batch. And this one's written by Richard Matheson, as I said. It's about a middle-aged man who can't let go of his mother who died, and they go back to the house that he grew up in. Him and his wife go back into the house to have a look at the stuff, and they're going to sell the house. But ultimately, he can't get over his mother's death. The wife is really irritated by it and wants him to move on. So she's quite intense in it, actually. The guy who plays the son, or the husband, depending on the perspective, does it really well, actually. I think it's quite measured. It's not like hysterically done. It's done really well. So I think that's the real plus point in the episode. But I think it's a very nice episode. It's one I didn't remember. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And the ending is quite surprising, I think, because it doesn't feel like it's going in that direction. So yeah, Young Man's Fancy is a good one. And then there's quite a big moment for the Twilight Zone, and that is the episode I Sing the Body Electric. I Sing the Body Electric begins with this a little shorter opening narration. They make a fairly convincing pitch here. It doesn't seem possible, though, to find a woman who might be 10 times better than Mother in order to seem half as good. Except, of course, in the Twilight Zone. Okay, so I Sing the Body Electric is written by Ray Bradbury. And this story was written as a teleplay for the Twilight Zone before he turned it into an actual short story. So you can read a short story now by Ray Bradbury called I Sing the Body Electric. He titled one of his anthologies that as well. But this was a moment when he wrote for the Twilight Zone. He had written lots of other things and sort of given them material, but they hadn't used it up until now. So it's pretty cool that they used this one. And it's a very good episode about a family that's dealing with the fact that the mother had died, and the father was trying to deal with these three kids, and the three kids were in different stages of mourning, if you like. One of them, who's played by Veronica Cartwright, famous for possibly the most famous thing, I reckon, is her role in Alien. She's the sort of the one that screams a lot when the alien's coming out of John Hurt's stomach. Veronica Cartwright, she's been in loads of things, but she's a little girl in this one, and she is definitely at the more intense end of the mourning period where she can't accept it, and she's really angry about it. And the other two are in a different stage of mourning. But David White, who plays their father, does a really good performance, and it's different from his previous performance in a different Twilight Zone episode, and different from what he's really famous for, which is Bewitched. So this is the fourth actor that eventually becomes really famous in Bewitched. But yeah, David White plays a really good part as the father. It's very realistically done. It's not too exaggerated, and works really well. And he's got to figure out what to do. And they basically get a robot grandma, and it kind of goes from there. And it's a really good episode. It's really sweetly done. It's not, it's quite unique in a way. It's not repeated anywhere else, and it does feel like Ray Bradbury as well, which is great. So, yeah, I Sing the Body Electric is a really wonderful addition to this last bit of season 3. And then we're going back to Rod Serling again for Cavender is Coming. Okay, and Cavender is Coming begins with this opening narration. Small message of reassurance to that horizontal young lady. Don't despair, help is en route. It's coming in an odd form from a very distant planet, but it's nevertheless coming. Submit it for your approval. The case of one Mrs. Agnes Grep, put on earth with 2 left feet, an overabundance of thumbs, and a propensity for falling down manholes. In a moment she'll be up to her jaw in miracles wrought by apprentice angel Harmon Cavender, intent on winning his wings. And though it's a fact that both of them should have stood in bed, they will tempt all the fates by moving into the cold, grey dawn of the Twilight Zone. Okay, so Cavender is Coming is really different. It's really different. There has been episodes before where they've tried to do comedy. Possibly the most successful one for me was probably Once Upon a Time, the one with Buster Keaton in it. But this time, this is a genuinely good, funny, interesting, bouncy, energetic episode. Really, because of its main star, who's Carol Burnett. So Carol Burnett is being very Carol Burnett in it. I mean, I think she was an amazing actress. Absolutely brilliant, funny actress. And she is really good in this. The episode is very, very happy to be an out-and-out comedy. And she's properly, like, goofing about with her kind of facial expressions and stuff. But basically, she plays this accident-prone, clumsy person. And there's a guardian angel that's kind of on its last kind of warning, if you like, and wants to earn his wings. And he gets sent down to look after Carol Burnett's character. And it's very similar in plot to Mr. Beavis, an episode from previous seasons, and the one that Orson Bean played, Mr. Beavis. And it's a much better episode, I think. I thought Mr. Beavis was a good episode, and Orson Bean was brilliant in it. But Carol Burnett is just phenomenal, so I think she makes it better. And I think in general, the kind of the feel of it, the tone of it, the rhythm of it is better. So I just think it's a really, really good episode, this one. Cavender is Coming. And it's interesting because this one and Mr. Beavis were Rod Serling's attempts to create a character that he wanted to make a pilot episode for and have a new, like, regular series of this character. So Mr. Beavis was one of them, and he offered it to Burgess Meredith, and Burgess Meredith said no, so Orson Bean played the character as a one-off character in an episode. And in this one, Cavender, which is the name of the guardian angel, was supposed to be a character to run for a pilot episode, and then they decided not to do that, and then they just did it as a one-off episode. So it's interesting that in both situations, you've got this guardian angel plot, and he really wanted to run a full series with this character, Cavender. But yeah, it's a really good kind of like an It's a Wonderful Life kind of message again, like that you're not appreciating the life you've got. But Carol Burnett's very funny, but also I think the direction of it's really good. I think the timing of the comedy is brilliant. You know, regardless of Carol Burnett's acting, everything around her works really well because of the timing. Comedy is about timing, and it's done really well in this episode. So yeah, a really successful episode that I just thought was absolutely brilliant. And one of the interesting things about this one as well is it originally had a laugh track. So it had canned laughter on it originally, and then he took it off for the DVD releases. So I think that's interesting because you wouldn't have a laugh track on any other episode of Twilight Zone. I'm glad it's not on there anymore, I think. Maybe I'd like to experience it with a laugh track, I'm not sure. But yeah, really interesting fact that particular episode had a laugh track on it. originally. But yeah, absolutely brilliant episode, I thought. And then to finish this batch off is a really good, nice, solid, classic episode written by Rod Serling called Changing of the Guard. And the Changing of the Guard starts with this opening narration. Professor Ellis Fowler, a gentle, bookish guide to the young, who is about to discover that life still has certain surprises, and that the campus of the Rock Spring School for Boys lies on a direct path to another institution, commonly referred to as the Twilight Zone. So Changing of the Guard stars Donald Pleasance in an absolutely brilliant performance. I mean, Donald Pleasance is a really good actor. I think he's quite underrated, actually. But yeah, he's does a fantastic job in this. It's a little bit melancholic, this episode, very reflective, but it's got a lovely message. It's kind of like a tribute to teachers, because Donald Pleasance plays a teacher that's basically been given his marching orders. He's been told that they're letting him go. He's taught there for 51 years, and his first reaction is he starts having this sort of imposter syndrome, kind of self-doubt, saying, oh, I never did anything good in my life, blah, blah, blah. He's sort of talking to his maid, talking about that. And then the Twilight Zone teaches him what actually did happen, and he did have an impact. And there's all these ex-students of his that appear in a very dramatic way to teach him that actually he did have an impact and he changed their lives. And it's a really lovely episode. I'm a teacher, so I could really relate to that. I could relate to the imposter syndrome bit. I could relate to ex-students telling you that you'd had an impact, because I've had that. And I also can relate to just the idea of teachers having an influence, because that's happened for me with teachers that have taught me as well. So, yeah, I think it's a really successful episode from the perspective of the performance, the message, the structure of it. I think the pacing could have been slightly better, to be fair. But Liam Sullivan turns up again as well, actually. He's the headmaster that tells him that they're letting him go. And he was the guy that was the victim, if you like, in the episode called The Silence. I don't know how many of these episodes you've seen, but Liam Sullivan was really good in that. And he's got a shorter role in this, but he's really good. But Donald Pleasance is central to this, and he does lots of interesting things in it, and he's in every scene, and it's all about him. But it's a fantastic performance, it really is. So a really beautiful episode that finishes off season 3. And one of the interesting things I found out as well when I was just checking things out with this episode is after this episode was written, Rod Serling went for a teaching post and he got a teaching job, which I think is really interesting. So I don't know if he was mulling over this career choice as he was writing the episode, possibly. But yeah, he ended up going to teach at a university, I think it was, after having written this script. So season 3 has happened. I've done 102 episodes now in these videos, and the quality is amazing. And this was a nice batch of videos. Sorry, a nice batch of episodes to finish with for this 17th video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And please comment below if you know any of these episodes and what you're thinking of this series of videos so far. And I'll see you next time. Stay curious, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to be